It's now just over 4 months since the former Everton and Liverpool striker Natasha Dowie announced her retirement from playing professional football. And in a hugely successful career, Natasha won the FA Cup with Everton and also twice won the Women's Super League with Liverpool. And I'm delighted to say that Natasha is with us here in the studio today. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for having me.
And I think it's fair to say we've got so much to talk about today. We'll talk about your career. We'll talk about the current WSL campaign. But I've got to say, you know, since you've hung up your boots, you're still a very, very busy person, aren't you?
Probably more busy, to be honest, than when I was a professional football player. But look, life is great right now. Every morning I'm having to wake up and pinch myself. Every week is new. It's exciting, whether it's, you know, doing the game day appearances at Anfield, whether it's mentoring at the academy, you know, whether it's working for LFC TV, doing my co-coms. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Dubai and Bangkok, travelling with retail, meeting the partners over there and our fans on the international stage. Yeah, I'm living the dream right now.
I actually this week learned 2 things about you. I learned that we share the same birthday, although clearly not the same year. And I also learned that you have a very famous footballing family as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I just want to reflect, if I may, just on the women's game, because clearly the women's game has grown incredibly well in the last few years. You know, there's record attendances at WSL games, the success of the World Cup, and of course the Lionesses winning the European Championships as well. I just want to take you back to when you were little Natasha, growing up in school. And yes, you've got a famous dad. Yes, you've got a famous uncle. But when you were growing up, did you ever have the dream that you could make a career out of football?
Never make a career out of it, no, but I always wanted to be a football player. I remember it's pretty much as soon as I was born, I had a ball in my hand. That's all I remember doing as a kid, is being in my back garden, on my own, with the goal, with my football, scoring goals, celebrating, you know, pretending that I was Alan Shearer at the time or Thierry Henry. And, you know, my dad as well, you know, was a big influence in my football career, you know, was my coach from a very young age. But look, the possibility of being a professional football player and actually making money from it was never a possibility. You know, at school, in primary school, in secondary school, I wasn't allowed to play with the boys. You know, it was always trying to find a way where I could just kick a ball. The opportunities weren't there for girls when I was younger. So that's why now, looking back, I'm so proud of the way the women's game is growing. Still got a long, long way to go, but the steps within the 20 years that I've been a professional football player, it's been magnificent, and hopefully it will continue.
And I don't say this to embarrass you, but let's look at some of the stats on your CV. You know, Liverpool's all-time leading goal scorer, which is something to be incredibly proud of. You won the FA Cup with Everton, 2 Women's Super League titles with Liverpool. I think in Australia, you won the Golden Boot there as well. FA Players Player of the Year, numerous international caps for England. And as I say, you've played football all over the world, and that is a CV to be incredibly proud of.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're going through your career, you maybe don't reflect on it as well as you should. And probably since I've retired, looking back now, I can say I'm massively proud of my career. I don't think there's many people within the women's game that can say that they've done what I've done. You know, you look at maybe likes of Jess Fishlock maybe and a Jodie Taylor. But apart from that, you know, to say that I've played in 6 different countries and represented my country, you know, played for over 14 clubs, like you said, pretty much won golden boots everywhere I've gone. And it's been hard work, but I've loved absolutely every minute of it. And, you know, I've made friends for life all over the world, been able to travel with my partner as well and experience that with her. So I've been able to share those memories. And yeah, you know, it's been a journey, but one, like I said, that I'll always look back on with real pride. And I've had some really special moments throughout my career.
And as you say, those opportunities, they give you the chance to meet some incredible people, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I've captained Melbourne Victory over in Australia, and that's almost become like a second home to me now in Melbourne. You know, my Melbourne Victory family over there, they'll always be my family. Playing over in America, you know, Bend It Like Beckham, I remember as a kid watching that and then being able to actually go over there and play against some of the players like Marta, Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, these top players, playing for AC Milan and wearing the number 10 shirt and being kind of told that I was the Zlatan of the women's team over there. And, you know, I've still got followers that still support me even though I'm retired. But, you know, wearing the number 9 shirt for Liverpool was definitely the most special moment for me. And again, Everton, you know, I had some amazing years at Everton, winning the FA Cup with Everton, the League Cup. You know, so I've played for some really special clubs. And if you had said that to me when I was a little girl, I think I would have struggled to believe you, to be honest, to have said that I've played for all those amazing teams.
And I think you're somebody who always wants to push yourself, aren't you, onto the next challenge. You're never happy just to be content where you are. It's always about, right, what is next?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think people always said to me, why did you travel so much? Why did you play for so many different clubs? Why did you not just settle and be at a club for a bit longer than maybe 3-4 years? And I think the thing for me was I never envisioned or never had them thoughts that I would travel so much. But like what you said, I didn't like to feel that I was comfortable. I didn't like to feel complacent. And I always felt that I could push myself a little bit more. So when I was playing in Australia, the lifestyle was incredible, but I felt like I was in my comfort zone football wise. Then I went to Scandinavia and played for Linköping in Sweden, which was incredible again, but just felt like maybe I could go up another level. Played in Norway for Vålerenga in Champions League. But again, it's that pushing myself. Then when obviously I moved to AC Milan, unfortunately that was more of a COVID situation that kind of stopped me playing there. So it was always that I want to go more. And then coming back to England was a decision that I'd been away for 8 years traveling abroad. When I'd left England, I'd won the league, won the Golden Boot, pretty much won everything there was to win in England. I wanted to come back and show people how Tash Dowie had developed as a person and as a player. I wanted to prove that I'd become a better person and a player. And I think, fate's a funny thing. I came back to Reading. I was really unhappy there and then ended up finding myself back at the club that I love, support at Liverpool, ended up ending my career at Liverpool, which I never could have dreamt of. So it's funny how things, kind of happen. I think I believe in fate and I believe, fate brought me back to Liverpool.
Yeah, it's very humbling, isn't it? Because I think when we spoke on the phone last time, we spoke about everything you've achieved in the game. But for you, at this time in your life, it was about coming home. And when we talk about coming home, it's coming home to the city of Liverpool.
It is. It's funny. When I came back to England, full stop, it was to come back and be nearer to my family. But it's different. I can't explain it. I'm from London. I'm from Hertfordshire, but I'm an adopted Scouser now. And as soon as I came back to Liverpool and I came back to my home, I hadn't lived in my house in over 8 years, so actually to be able to live in my home and there's just this feeling about this city. I can't explain it, but there is no place like it, and I think that putting on that Liverpool shirt again, seeing the badge, hearing the crowd singing my name, being back with Matt Beard and some of my best friends within the squad, I felt like a little kid again. I was 34 years old, but I honestly felt like I was 3 years old and my whole football journey had just started again. And yeah, I'm just so thankful that I had those, 4 or 5 months with the team last year and like I said, could end my career on a real high at Liverpool Football Club. Yeah,
it's good to hear. And I mentioned before as well, Tash, that you've got a very famous footballing family because your dad, Bob, was director of football at Crystal Palace. And you've also got a very famous uncle as well. Yeah,
I'm very proud. I think probably my genes came from them too. My uncle Ian managed Crystal Palace in the Premier League, played for the likes of West Ham, Southampton, Northern Ireland. And my dad, Bob, he played more semi-pro, but again, got his A licence, coached at a very good level for St Albans and for the local teams. And they both obviously took Palace to the Premier League. We're unlucky, only had 1 year in the Premier League, really. Last game of the season got relegated. But it was great to share those moments with them and to be at the Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park and to, see them go up against some of the giants of the men's game, like Arsenal, Thierry Henry. But yeah, no, it's great. My dad probably more than my uncle had more of an influence in my career, but my uncle always asked my dad how I was getting on and being a striker as well, how I was doing, was I scoring goals? But I've got to give more probably credit to my mum and dad. My dad from day one was the one that got me playing football, who drove me hours and hours, up the M1, up the M6, to Liverpool 2 or 3 times a week when I made the move to Everton. So without him, really, I probably wouldn't have got to where I was today.
And I wasn't going to mention this at first, but I think it's worth mentioning it because it also shows how successful you have been in the game. I think it was the 2010 FA Cup final when you scored 2 goals for Everton against Arsenal, and you beat Arsenal by 3-2 on that day. And that was the very same day, just a couple of hours earlier, that Hull City, I think, which was managed by your uncle, was relegated from the Premier League on the same day. Clearly, that was a day of very mixed emotions for you.
Yeah, it was. I've had a lot of mixed emotions, I guess, with my uncle. When I was at Charlton, he was the manager at Charlton at the time. They got relegated and ended up pulling the plug on the women's team. That's why I actually ended up making the move then to Everton. But yeah, I think you're spot on. That for me was a moment that, truthfully, selfishly, I probably thought more about myself and the moment that I was having with Everton at the time. And again, that was one of the highlights of my football career. 2 minutes to go, getting that winner at the Forest nice ground, in front of all our fans. And it was funny because it was between Everton and Arsenal who I was going to sign for, and I ended up signing for Everton because I wanted to go to the team to knock Arsenal off the top. So to then get that winning goal and kind of beat Arsenal in the final, and to win the FA Cup, and we're the only team that's ever won the FA Cup with Everton that year. So special moments, but yeah, tough day as well for my uncle. And that's football, it's ups and downs, highs and lows. Hope mostly in my career I've had more highs than lows, but it's a bit of a roller coaster of a journey. I'm
delighted to say Natasha Dowie is with us, the former Liverpool and Everton striker. We've been talking about her career and what she's up to now, but I just want to get your thoughts, Tash, on the Women's Super League, and we'll begin by talking, if we may, about Everton, because Everton are, I would say, they've not been helped by a significant number of injuries this season. I know Brian Sorensen has spoken at length about the fact that before Christmas they were really struggling to get 11 players on the pitch. What's your take on what we've seen from Everton in the WSL so far this campaign?
I think it's been mixed, a little bit of inconsistency, truthfully. I think they've got the individual players there, but now I think it's just about getting those players really gelling together. And I think that's been the case for Everton for the last couple of years, to be honest. Have spent quite a lot, invested quite a lot, but really the results then aren't coming. And I think the way the women's game is now, that's pressure on managers. You can see with, Mel from Brighton, Mel Phillips getting sacked the other day. I think that came as a surprise. So, Everton can compete with any top team. You see they beat Liverpool in the derby. But then it's just that consistency. And I think they should be doing better than what they are, truthfully, I think, with the group of players that they've got. But like you said, injury wise, that's always going to knock you. You need to have that consistency. You need to have that depth in squad. And I think that's probably why the table is what it is right now. Those top three teams, United, City and Arsenal, in my opinion, Chelsea obviously as well, the depth in squad that they've got, they can field 2 11-a-side teams. And I think that probably is where then Everton are struggling. When they have the odd injury, then it's hard to then compete.
Yeah, and currently they're 9th in the WSL. They've lost their first 2 games of the new calendar year. And against Leicester City last weekend, I think it's fair to say they dominated for large parts of the game last weekend. But it was that second half goal that killed Everton's momentum. And ultimately, Everton's still looking for their first home league win of the season. Yeah,
and it's hard. Goal scorers are hard to come by. But again, I know they signed the big Italian forward who I played against when I was at AC Milan. But she hasn't really hit the ground running. The Dutch centre forward as well. I just don't feel like they have a real clinical centre forward, which again is probably why the table again it shows. Those top 4 teams, they have that, and they have the cover. Whereas you look at maybe the likes of your Liverpools, your Bristol Cities, that kind of bottom half side of the table. Defensively, they can compete and battle, but then I think it's that kind of magic that can happen in the final third. I think probably really only Aston Villa with Rachel Daly, that's probably the only team down there that have that kind of prolific goal scorer. And even her this season has been struggling a little bit to produce the numbers that she did last year. But they've got a tough game as well going away to Chelsea tomorrow, so it doesn't become any easier. And I think the league is so tough now, and like you said, against your Leicesters, you really should be picking up points because they're the teams in and around you. That's where you really need to try and get points on the table, try and build a bit of momentum, because it's hard then. You've gone, like you said, 2 games losing. Now you're away to Chelsea. You just need to find a way to pick up points.
And this game against Chelsea is a 6:45 kickoff tomorrow night as well. And I think, once again this season, Tash, Chelsea have shown the reason why that they are the reigning champions.
They're so good. We won the league back-to-back with Liverpool in 2013 and 14, and that was so hard to do it back-to-back. Chelsea have won it, 4 years in a row now, and they're looking to probably go on and do it a 5th year in a row. And to be honest, I think they will. Definitely as well, similar kind of with a Jurgen Klopp leaving, it's an Emma Hayes leaving, and I think the players will want to do that for her, especially with what she's done for this club and how she's really grown the club. She's been phenomenal manager, and I think they'll massively miss her. So that's going to be really interesting moving forward, how they cope without Emma Hayes and who replaces her. But yeah, especially with the likes of Sam Kerr, but they have players. I know you're never going to have a Sam Kerr. You can never replace a Sam Kerr, but the players can do a job, they can adapt, so they can evolve. They've got the squad depth to be able to do that, and yeah, they're strong. They're such a strong team.
And in terms of your expectations for Everton for the rest of the season, in terms of how far you think they can go in the WSL campaign, any sort of thoughts from yourself on that?
Yeah, look, I want Everton to do well. I had 5 great years there, and it's a club that I still hold fond thoughts of. Truthfully, I think where they are now is about where they'll finish. I think they're a mid-table team, truthfully. I think they'll be safe, absolutely. I think they're strong enough to stay in the league, but I don't think they're anywhere near the level of the top four. And I think the likes of your Liverpools, they're stronger than Everton right now. I think your Tottenham Hotspurs potentially are stronger right now. And I think when I say stronger, I don't necessarily mean player for player, squad-wise, but consistency in performances, they're better right now. I think Liverpool, you can tell, harder to beat, haven't conceded as many goals, have gone to the Emirates and won, have competed with the top teams. Whereas I think Everton, right now, they need to focus probably more actually on the home form. I think that if you were to compare maybe Liverpool with Everton right now, Liverpool at home at Prenton, they've made it a fortress. Whereas Everton, potentially, they need to do better, make their home a bit more of a fortress and then try and pick up the odd point here and there. So we'll see how the season ends. But I would say, Everton, whereabouts they are right now is probably where they deserve to be.
And let's talk about Liverpool, because they're currently 5th in the WSL after that 2-0 defeat at home to Arsenal last weekend. And whilst it was a defeat for Liverpool, I think it's fair to say, Tash, that the level of performance from Liverpool last weekend was considerably better than the heavy defeat away at Manchester City the weekend before that. Yeah,
absolutely. I watched both games, and I think against City, I wouldn't say naive, but we gave them most of their goals, trying to play out in wrong areas. And I think the first 3 goals pretty much we actually gave to them literally from the goalkeeper. And against City, you can't afford to be doing that. You have to be playing near perfection. And then I think against Arsenal, the performance was a lot more like the Liverpool team that we've seen this year. Really defensively strong, hard to beat, solid, that back five. And then we've got players or people that can create chances and we can nick a goal. That's what we did when we were at the Emirates. We pretty much defended for our lives, and then we had one counter-attack, one opportunity, scored the goal, 1-0. So, look, I think that from watching the game back, it was inevitable that Arsenal were eventually probably going to get the goals. They were really piling on the pressure, and with the likes of Miedemar, they've got world-class players, Ford, Mead, and this is the difference again. I think with the Liverpool team, you're probably relying heavily on the new centre-forward, Hawk, to score your goals. Whereas you look at that Arsenal team, you don't have to rely heavily on a Miedemar, because you've got 6 or 7 other players that can chip in with goals and create goals. And again, I think that's why they'll definitely be the team that are pushing Chelsea for the title this season.
And a great performance from Niamh Fahey last weekend as well.
Yeah, nice to see Niamh back. I dropped her a little message after and just said, great to have you back. And she's a real captain. She's a real leader. I've had many battles against Niamh in the past when she was playing for Arsenal and I was at Everton and Liverpool. And, she's just first and foremost a good person. She's an honest player. She knows her strengths. I'd say she's old school, but I like that. She's a old school centre half that puts in the tackles, nothing too fancy, gives it to the midfield players that can make the magic happen. But I think it's important to have her back. The likes of her and Gemma Bonner, they have that experience. And then you've got the youthful players like your Jenna Clarks that have come into the team. Fisk's got lots of experience. And I think that's probably why Liverpool has done as well as what they have done, because I think defensively they have defenders that really love to defend, and I think they've had that foundation, that solid foundation that then they can kind of grow on. Now I think it's about creating more, and I think now they need to score more if they want to compete with the top teams.
And just a word about the gaffer, Matt Beard, because I think last weekend he said that his side should have been a lot braver going forward against Arsenal last weekend. But in terms of the man himself, from what I've seen from Matt Beard, he looks to be a great Liverpool manager and can really sort of try and encourage and get the best out of his side.
Yeah, me and Beardy go way back, from when I was a 17-year-old kid. He was my assistant coach at Charlton. And then I moved to Liverpool, had 3 years with him there, went over to Boston Breakers and played 2 years with him over in America, and then found myself back last year at Liverpool. So, he's a friend, and he's a manager that Beardy's biggest strength is the way he organises teams. He's very good tactically at setting a team up to make it hard to play against. So I think you've got to give him credit for what he's done. It's a very new team this year, a young team, and he said numerous times on interviews that it's about developing now. This isn't just going to be a year thing, a 2-year thing. It's about really looking to the future. and hopefully the team keeps performing well and he has that time with the team that he can then build this Liverpool women's team into a team that can compete for trophies again, just like what we did 10 years ago.
And clearly Liverpool are not going to let these last 2 defeats define their season. But in terms of how far you think Liverpool can go again, as I say, they're 5th. It's going to be really difficult to get into the top 3, isn't it? Looking at where Chelsea, Man City and Arsenal are right now. But you think clearly Liverpool could finish top 4 and, I don't know, at a push, could they get the top 3?
Yeah, I think top 3's a push, truthfully. I think that probably where they are right now, they would be happy. But I also know Beardy and the girls. And because they are so close to the likes of your United, I think if they could get that top 4, then they've definitely, I think, overachieved this year. I think looking at where we finished last year, they probably would have been targeting a mid-table finish this year. But to have such a strong start to the season, I definitely think they're capable of getting into that top 4. But then moving forward, you know, to really break into that top 3, there's going to have to be more investment and probably a bit more time with the squad together to really see what this team and this squad can produce.
And tomorrow, Spurs come to Prenton Park in a 2 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. That's 5th against 6th in the WSL. That's going to be a thrilling game tomorrow.
Big game. Yeah, that's the one. I think out of all the games, I think that's the big one tomorrow. I think they're on the same points, 18 points, I think it is. And Spurs are in really good form. The likes of Martha Thomas, Beth England now back from her injury. And you know, they've got some real top quality players in that squad. So Liverpool are at home. So again, they're a different animal. They're a different breed at home. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And it's going to be huge. I think momentum wise, it's important that Liverpool get the 3 points, especially like you said, after the 2 defeats. But Tottenham will fancy their chances for sure.
And you know, one theme that we've mentioned on this show when we've talked about the WSL in weeks and months gone by is that anyone listening to this programme today that possibly hasn't been to see a WSL game, you know, get yourself down to Prenton Park or Walton Hall Park. Of course, both teams in action tomorrow, because it is great football and it's also a very friendly family experience as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant. Honestly, I can't say enough about it. You know, the fans are so welcoming. You know, we get good turnouts. I think we had a record crowd last week against Arsenal. I think there was, nearly 6,000-7,000 people there. The same, like you said, at Walton Hall Park. Absolutely. Get your kids down there, you know, support the teams. And there's always good football on show. I think year on year, the WSL, is progressing. You know, the football's better, the standard's better. So yeah, definitely get down there and support the girls.